So, Kaixo, Egunon, bonjour, hello, buenos dias. The Puy-de-Dôme and the Petit-Puy-de-Dôme volcanoes in central France are very similar in the history of their geology to the previous site. Kathleen will present the historical part and I will present the geological part, because every day when I open my curtains I see this site from my window. I'll just go back. So it's a world iconic site on the edge of a rift. It's a classic area for the recognition of extinct volcanoes and for historical geological debates, and it's still being debated. So it's in central France, the Auvergne region. We're proud to have citizenship now. And it's also a World Heritage Site from 2018, and there are people within the audience who I know who helped us get there, so thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. The geological context is simple and complex at the same time, but the site that we have identified, and INHIGEO also picked out as well, is two volcanoes. One, which is a crater of elevation, as was mentioned just now, a bulge where magma came in underneath the surface like that, and as the magma accumulated, it bulged up the surface. There is also the Puy-de-Dôme, which is where that same sticky magma came out and produced a volcano. So it's the Petit-Puy-de-Dôme is actually the mother, we can say, of the Puy-de-Dôme. This is the geological description. It's a history from 11,000 years for about 1,000 years, really. So from the top, we have the previous landscape, and then Leopold von Buch was the first, about 250 years ago, to notice that there was something bulging up there, which I thought I'd discovered, but he'd found it first. And Scrope and others were the people who'd seen that it wasn't just bulging up, but something was erupted out in the 1800s as well. But the full history has only really recently been unraveled by geophysical, geochemical, and paleomagnetic work, which is in the second from bottom slide, where that bulge that was lifting up allowed, I have to change my hands, the dome to grow, but then it carried on growing, so it tipped it over. And there were a few other similar eruptions after that. So it's still evolving as a geomorphological entity by erosion, slowly, with anthropic influences. The Romans built a temple on top of the Gallic one. On top of it, there is a railway going up now, and there's a lot of give and take between human influence and the natural environment, which is still very much there. So, the scientific tradition, this is where we get on to the transition in a moment, the site continues to be an exceptional location for scientists to go and test. It is a standard for geophysical measurements. It's also a site for atmospheric sciences. So we have the link between the Earth and the atmosphere. And as I said, it's for a geophysical standard, but also a physics standard. So even after 250 years of looking at it, there's still more to do. And I think that's where I hand over to Kathleen. So, Esquericaso. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. It's also very nice to have these double acts between history and geology. So the scientific tradition. From the 18th century, we have two figures who brought attention to the area of the Auvergne. First, we have Jean-Étienne Guettard, who published in 1752 a work on the extinct volcanoes in the area of the Auvergne, mentioning also the Puy-de-Dôme. We have then Nicolas Desmarais, who published this beautiful map in 1771, where we see here the Puy-de-Dôme and the Petit-Puy-de-Dôme. This was drawn by the Royal Engineers Passumet and Delay. And Desmarais wrote the explanation, the paper that accompanied this map. He also included this wonderful plate here of the basalts in the Encyclopédie in 1768. Now, the importance of Guettard and Desmarais is that they documented time within the volcanoes in the Auvergne. They mapped the ancient massifs, they mapped the current, they mapped the massifs that had basalt within these flows, but they also showed that between different lava flows, there was erosion, there was deposition. So there was a concept of time, of extinct time. When we go to the 19th century, the area of the Auvergne is now established as an iconic place for geologists to observe volcanic structures within the field. So again, towards the end of the 18th century, the start of the 19th century, it's becoming more important to observe in the field these structures. And here, of course, we have Leopold von Buch, who published in 1802 a letter describing his observations within this area and his ideas on, of course, the craters of elevation and how the volcanic structures observed in the field could be interpreted within these theories. We also have George Pullett-Scrope, who published in 1827 a memoir on this area, and he included these beautiful landscape paintings and drawings. These were of extreme interest within the academic societies and where debates were being held on the origin of basalts and on the question of time. So these two works were quite pivotal within these debates that were going on in the 19th century. The Auvergne geosite was now central to the volcanological debates. It was on the canonical itinerary within France and Italy to visit these sites, to observe these features, particularly for questions regarding to the origin of basalt, the craters of elevation and the craters of eruption, catastrophism, and uniform meteoritism. We have some famous travelers visiting this area. We have, Okay, something gone wrong. Yes, thank you. So we have some famous travelers, such as the Bishop of Derry, Harvey, who was also working on the Giant's Causeway. John Strange, who visited the area in 1773. Horace Benedict de Saussure was there in 76 and 95. The Forget de Saint-Fond, Dolomieu, Breslac, who was an Italian geologist studying volcanic activity. And of course, in 1828, it was visited by Charles Lyell and Roderick Murchison. So the main arguments for the recognition, it's an iconic site for observations directly in the field in the 18th and 19th century of volcanic phenomena that showed evidence of acting over a long time scale. It's the type example of an intrusion-related uplift and accompanying erupted edifice, which itself has been tilted by bulging, as Ben explained before. It's also an important site for the studies in physics, atmospheric sciences, and it's a geophysical standard. Go to míle magat.